Today, we're taking a trip back to 1961, when rock and roll was young, rebellious, and shaking up the establishment. Unlike today's auto-tuned, overproduced noise, 1961 gave us raw talent and unforgettable melodies. So put down your smartphones, turn up the volume, and let's dive into the chart toppers that defined an era. Let's kick things off with Big Bad John by Jimmy Dean. Released in September 1961, this country pop crossover hit tells the tale of a larger-than-life miner who sacrifices himself to save his fellow co-workers. It's the kind of storytelling that's sorely missing in today's pop landscape.
Big John, Big Bad John.
Dean's deep voice and the song's dramatic narrative captivated audiences, earning it a Grammy and the top spot on the Billboard Hot 100. Here's a fun fact that might ruffle some feathers. Big Bad John was banned by some radio stations for using the word hell in its lyrics. Imagine that, one little hell causing such a stir. These days, you can barely find a song without explicit lyrics warnings. Makes you wonder if we've progressed or regressed, doesn't it? Next up, we've got The Lion Sleeps Tonight by The Tokens. This doo-wop adaptation of a Zulu folk song hit number 1 in December 1961. It's a prime example of how music used to bridge cultures without the performative virtue signaling we see today. The Tokens took a simple African melody and turned it into a global phenomenon, proving that great music transcends borders. Did you know that the original version of this song was written by Solomon Linda, a South African musician who received almost no royalties for his creation? It wasn't until decades later that Linda's family finally got their due. It's a stark reminder of how the music industry has long exploited talented artists, especially those from marginalized communities. Moving on to Blue Moon by the Marcells. This doo-wop rendition of the Rodgers and Hart classic skyrocketed to number 1 in April 1961. The Marcells took a tired old standard and injected it with youthful energy and those iconic bump, bump, bump vocal bass lines. It's the kind of musical reinvention that actually improved on the original, unlike today's soulless remixes and samples. Here's a tidbit that'll make you question everything. The Marcells recorded Blue Moon in just 2 takes. 2 takes in an era without digital editing and pitch correction. Bet that makes you think twice about all those overproduced, computer-generated tracks clogging up the airwaves these days. Now, let's talk about Hit the Road Jack by Ray Charles. Released in August 1961, this R&B classic showcased Charles' unparalleled talent for blending genres.
Well, I didn't quite understand it at first, you know what I mean? I thought there was something wrong with
With its catchy call and response format and Charles' gritty vocals, it's a far cry from today's cookie-cutter pop stars who can barely carry a tune without technological assistance. I know you've got stories about these songs. Maybe you danced to Hit the Road Jack at your high school prom, or perhaps Blue Moon was playing when you met your sweetheart. Share those memories in the comments. Let's show these youngsters what real music does to the soul. Please remember to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Up next is Runaround Sue by Dion. This rock and roll hit from September 1961 tells the story of a girl who breaks hearts left and right. It's got attitude, swagger, and a beat to get your feet moving. Dion's raw vocals in the song's doo-wop harmonies create a sound that's authentically rebellious, unlike today's manufactured bad boy and bad girl personas. Here's a juicy bit of gossip. Dion claimed the song was about a real girl he knew, but later admitted it was just a character he created. That's right, folks. Even back then, artists knew how to stir up controversy and keep people talking. The difference is, they did it with talent and creativity, not wardrobe malfunctions and social media stunts. Let's move on to Please Mr. Postman by the Marvelettes. This Motown classic hit number 1 in December 1961, making history as the first Motown song to top the Billboard Hot 100. It's a perfect example of the girl group sound that dominated the early 60s.
Oh yes, wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Wait
The longing in the vocals, the simple yet effective lyrics, it's the kind of earnest emotion that's hard to find in today's cynical musical landscape. Did you know that Please Mr. Postman almost didn't make it to the recording studio? The Marvelettes were initially told the song wasn't good enough. It just goes to show that even back then, record executives didn't always know what they were talking about. Some things never change, I guess. Now, let's talk about Travelin' Man by Ricky Nelson. This globe-trotting love song reached number 1 in May 1961. Nelson's smooth vocals and the song's breezy melody paint a picture of a carefree world traveler, a stark contrast to today's reality of TSA pat-downs and overbooked flights. It's a reminder of a time when the world seemed full of possibility and adventure. Here's a bit of trivia that might surprise you. Travelin' Man was originally written for Sam Cooke, but his manager turned it down. Imagine how different music history might have been if Cooke had recorded it instead. It's these little twists of fate that make the story of rock and roll so fascinating. Moving on to Tossin' and Turnin' by Bobby Lewis. This frenetic R&B number dominated the charts in July 1961, spending 7 weeks at number 1. With its driving beat and Lewis's energetic delivery, it's the kind of song that gets a party started. No DJ or expensive sound system required. Just pure, unadulterated musical joy. All right. Time for another break. I want to hear from you. What memories does Tossin' and Turnin' bring back? Did you ever stay up all night thinking about someone special? Share your stories in the comments. Let's keep the spirit of 61 alive. Next on our list is I Fall to Pieces by Patsy Cline. Released in January 1961, this country pop crossover hit showcased Cline's incredible vocal range and emotional depth. It's a far cry from today's pop country with its formulaic lyrics and overproduced sound. Cline's raw vulnerability in this song is something that can't be faked or manufactured. Here's a sobering fact. I Fall to Pieces was released just 2 years before Patsy Cline's untimely death in a plane crash. It's a tragic reminder of how fleeting life can be and how important it is to appreciate true artistic talent while we have it. Let's switch gears to Runaway by Del Shannon. This rock and roll classic hit number 1 in April 1961. Featuring one of the first uses of the Mousatron, an early electronic keyboard. Shannon's falsetto and the song's distinctive instrumental break made it stand out in a crowded field. It's the kind of innovative sound that pushed music forward, unlike today's endless recycling of the same tired beats and melodies. Did you know that Runaway has been covered by over 200 artists, including Elvis Presley and Bonnie Raitt? That's the mark of a truly great song. It transcends genres and generations. You don't see many of today's hits inspiring that kind of longevity, do ya? Now, we can't talk about 1961 without mentioning Are You Lonesome Tonight by Elvis Presley. While it was released in late 1960, it dominated the charts in early 1961. Are you lonesome? The King's velvety vocals and the song's spoken word interlude set it apart from his earlier rock and roll hits. It's a masterclass in versatility, something many of today's one-trick pony pop stars could learn from. Here's a bit of controversy for you. Elvis's recording of Are You Lonesome Tonight was inspired by a 1927 version by Al Jolson. Yes, the same Al Jolson known for performing it in blackface. It's a complex legacy that reminds us of the often problematic history of popular music, something we're still grappling with today. We're nearing the end of our journey through 1961, but don't touch that dial just yet. I want to hear your thoughts on Elvis. Love him or hate him, he changed the face of music forever. Share your Elvis memories or hot takes in the comments. Let's get a real discussion going. Up next is Will You Love Me Tomorrow by the Shirelles. This groundbreaking hit reached number 1 in January 1961, becoming the first song by an all-girl group to top the Billboard Hot 100. Its frank exploration of sexual themes was controversial for its time, pushing boundaries in a way that makes today's edgy pop lyrics look tame by comparison. Here's a fact that might raise some eyebrows. Will You Love Me Tomorrow was co-written by Carole King, who was just 18 years old at the time. Imagine that, a teenage girl writing one of the most iconic songs of the 20th century. Makes you wonder about all the young talent today that's being overlooked in favor of industry-manufactured pop stars, doesn't it? Let's move on to Take Good Care of My Baby by Bobby Vee. This sweet, innocent love song hit number 1 in September 1961.
Take good care of my baby.
Vee's clean-cut image and the song's simple melody represent a different side of early 60s pop, one that coexisted with the more rebellious rock and roll sound. It's a reminder that great music doesn't always have to be edgy or controversial. Here's a bit of trivia that connects the past to the present. Take Good Care of My Baby was written by Carole King and Jerry Goffin, the same team behind Will You Love Me Tomorrow. King, of course, went on to become one of the most successful singer-songwriters of all time. It just goes to show that true talent has staying power, unlike many of today's flash-in-the-pan pop sensations. Now, let's talk about Calendar Girl by Neil Sedaka. This upbeat, catchy tune reached number 4 on the charts in 1961.
I love my calendar girl. Yeah.
With its clever lyrics naming a girl for each month of the year, it's the kind of creative songwriting that seems to be in short supply these days. Sedaka's cheerful delivery and the song's bouncy rhythm make it impossible not to smile. No fancy production tricks required. Did you know that Neil Sedaka wrote or co-wrote over 500 songs during his career? That's right, 500. In an age of songwriting by committee and AI-generated lyrics, Sedaka's prolific output and lasting success are a testament to the power of good old-fashioned talent and hard work. Finally, we come to Crying by Roy Orbison. Released in July 1961, this operatic ballad showcased Orbison's incredible 4-octave vocal range.
But I've been crying.
The raw emotion in his voice and the song's dramatic build make modern power ballads sound hollow in comparison. It's the kind of performance that sends chills down your spine. No pyrotechnics or elaborate stage shows needed. Here's a fun fact to wrap things up. Crying was ranked number 69 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. Not bad for a song that's over 60 years old, eh? It just goes to show that true classics never go out of style, no matter how much the music industry tries to convince us otherwise. And there you have it, folks. A journey through the number 1 hits in 1961. It was a year of innovation, rebellion, and unforgettable melodies. From the soulful sounds of Ray Charles to the rock and roll energy of Del Shannon, 1961 had it all. These songs weren't just popular. They were the soundtrack to people's lives, the backdrop to first kisses, high school dances, and cruising down Main Street with the windows down. So the next time someone tries to tell you that music was better back in the day, you can point them to this video and say you're damn right it was. These songs have stood the test of time for a reason. They're not just hits. They're a piece of history, a window into a world that was simpler in some ways, more complex in others, but always vibrant, always alive. And again, please remember to like this video, share with friends, and subscribe so you don't miss future videos.